Night one of WrestleMania 41 is now in the books, and we had a huge swerve twist ending for the triple threat main event match between Roman Reigns, CM Punk, and Seth Rollins, where the match was mainly built around Paul Heyman, his betrayal of the tribal chief, his alignment with CM Punk, all came to a head in the closing moments of this match where Paul Heyman, being the forever slime ball that he is, delivered a low blow on not only CM Punk, but also on Roman Reigns, and handed a steel chair to Seth Rollins, who used it once again on Roman Reigns, straight to the back, hit him with a stomp, and got the win, and walked out with Paul Heyman. Heyman raised Seth's hand, they shook hands on the stage, they walked out together. Seth Rollins, and I mean, just based on the moment alone, but even hearing the commentators and how Michael Cole and all of them were selling it, this was effectively the official Seth Rollins heel turn, and he has joined Paul Heyman. So, huge way to go off the air of WrestleMania Night One this year. It was a twist that a lot of people were predicting. A lot of people saw it coming. But it's all in the execution. It's all in how it plays out. And I thought the way that that moment played itself out in the main event was pretty damn great. I thought the moment itself, all the drama around it, and we'll get into it a little more in depth later on in the video here, but I just thought the way that it played out there was incredible. Seth Rollins turning heel, honestly, is probably for the best for his character. Paul Heyman, he can never be babyface too long, so of course he was going to turn heel, and him being a heel is natural. The relationship between him and Rollins, it's a little weird. It's going to take a little bit to get used to it. It's going to take a hell of an explanation to explain it and justify it, but that is what the TV shows are for. And I introduce the question now, will this be the last time we see Seth Rollins and Paul Heyman this weekend? Because there's a whole nother night of WrestleMania tomorrow night. Is it possible they could rear their heads on that show, particularly at the end of that show during the main event between John Cena and Cody Rhodes? We'll get into that, and we will answer that question because we have a full show to get through. I feel I want to break this show down going match by match here because this was a very strange WrestleMania show in that, to me personally, it really did not feel like a WrestleMania show. The show started strong with the World Heavyweight Championship match between Jey Uso and Gunther, a big moment there. You had the triple threat main event, and swerve finish aside, the match itself was excellent. But the match itself was also very important because it was a match that this show needed to save it from being a complete and total loss, because almost everything in the middle of that show, between the beginning and the end, really wasn't all that special. You had some good stuff in there. You had some good matches. You had a couple of good moments, but overall, top to bottom, not the strongest effort from WWE in terms of it being WrestleMania. There's a certain specialness, a certain uniqueness that surrounds the presentation of WrestleMania, and the vibes in that regard just weren't there, weren't felt on my part. So we'll get into some of this stuff. I want to first talk about the pre-show because there were a few big things that took place on the pre-show of this show. First of all, they announced right the hell out of nowhere that WWE has acquired AAA, the Mexican luchador promotion. And that's huge news. It's unbelievable. Not completely, totally unbelievable, but very shocking move there. And they announced a AAA NXT Worlds Collide event on June 7th in Los Angeles. But this is big. They had several Latin talents around the podium as they made that announcement. I believe it was Michael Cole who made the announcement. You had Andrade, you had Stephanie Vaquer there. They had Vikingo there, who made an appearance later on in the show. So, huge announcement there. Very mixed feelings, mixed emotions about this announcement. I personally don't know what to make of it, other than the fact that Triple H adopted the name TakeOver a very long time ago in NXT, and that has not stopped. So, crazy news there. Also, on the pre-show, they announced that Rey Mysterio would not be competing on this night due to an injury he suffered during a 6-man tag team match the previous night on SmackDown. We all saw the injury. There was no word spoken on Rey's health and any updates on his status all throughout the day, so I figured they would probably be waiting until the pre-show to announce what his status was, and they announced that he would not be able to compete, and his replacement would be Rey Fenix, the same Fenix who just debuted on SmackDown a few weeks ago, so that was pretty cool that he was able to step in there. But really sucky situation for Rey Mysterio, getting injured literally 24 hours before WrestleMania. And speaking of injury, we had a segment backstage where Lyra ran up and saw that Bayley was laid out and injured, and she would not be able to compete tomorrow night at WrestleMania. Apparently, they just observed her laying down and groaning and pained, and they just determined that, oh, well, she's just in too poor of condition to compete at WrestleMania. And I'm looking at her, I'm like, I don't know. She seems fine to me. I thought maybe this was going in a direction where Bayley would be hurt, so she would probably not be the strongest partner for her, but then she would still be out there and the match would play itself out. But the way they were making it seem like is that Bayley can't compete, so Lyra's going to have to find a new opponent, or a new partner, I should say. And then as the show was going on, certain news reports started reporting that this obviously was a fake angle here, but the fact that this is something that's been in the works for several weeks, and that this is all part of the story, and Bayley apparently was never set to compete at WrestleMania. And going as far as to also include the fact that there are several people backstage who were very dissatisfied and unhappy about Bayley's treatment here. So that sucks for her that she can't be at WrestleMania. They started something with her and Roxanne Perez several months ago, and that went nowhere. And then they just start up this random alliance with Lyra and Bayley to take on the tag champs. Now they pull this, so that's pretty shitty. If they are going to go forward with doing a surprise partner for Lyra, safe money is on a returning Becky Lynch to be her partner, and probably the two of them capturing the tag team titles. That might even spark or ignite a feud between the two of them for the Intercontinental Championship coming out of it. I don't know, but we'll see. I don't really like the treatment of Bayley in that situation, but it is what it is. But on to the actual show. 10 minutes in, might as well. The show opened up, like I mentioned before, with the World Heavyweight Championship on the line. Jey Uso, the winner of the 2025 Royal Rumble, challenging Gunther. And a lot was on the line in this match. Not only the championship, not only the fact that Jey Uso went into this match 0-3 against Gunther and 0-6 in World Championship matches in general. This was a chance for Jey Uso to go out there and shut up a lot of critics. Go out there and put on a great singles performance, something that he's not really equipped at doing, that he hasn't really showcased the ability to do thus far in his singles main event Jey Uso run. And the one person who he could do that with on a big stage like WrestleMania would be Gunther. And I can safely say that going out there, the two of them put on a very good match. It was not great. It was not phenomenal. It was not this 5-star classic. It's not a memorable WrestleMania match that will go down in history as something to look back on for ages and ages, at least not to me. But it was good. It was a much better performance than the one Jey had with his own brother last year. And I thought the story that they were telling was simple and basic, but effective. Gunther was overpowering Jey a lot throughout the match, but Jey showed a lot of heart, a lot of fire, and he was fighting back with every fiber of his being, even using some of Gunther's own moves on him. Not as well, but still very well. As good as he possibly could. Gunther hit a lot of his own big moves on Jey, but Jey kept kicking out. Jey didn't rely too heavily on the super kicks, but he did go to the spear a couple of times, and I wish he wouldn't because his spear is probably the worst in the entire company. It's crazy. You have Braun Breaker on the roster who has the absolute best spear, hands down, in the entire business today. And then Jey Uso has probably the single worst spear in the industry today. And yet Jey Uso is the one challenging for a world championship. But I'm not going to complain about that. I like Jey. I just wish he wouldn't use that move. But he did use a super kick at one point during the match. But he also hit a powerbomb on Gunther and the Uso splash. In fact, he hit about 3 Uso splashes. He hit one, then he hit another, and then he hit a third onto Gunther's back. And then he locks Gunther in a sleeper hold. He was standing up with Gunther in the sleeper hold. Gunther is kind of flailing his arms. And then he goes down to the mat, brings Gunther down with him, has the sleeper hold locked in, kind of locks himself around Gunther's body. And in very quick time, Gunther taps out, and that's it. Jey Uso wins his very first world championship. A very shocking finish. Not for Jey Uso winning the championship. Everyone was predicting that. But for the fact that he made Gunther tap out, that was very surprising here. And something that I was not the biggest fan of. There are certain people who I generally don't like seeing tap out, and Gunther is one of them. Although Gunther has tapped out before, when he initially lost his NXT UK championship, he lost it to Ilya Dragunov many years ago, and they had a hard, stiff, intense, brutal battle, and it took every fiber of Dragunov's being to bring down Gunther and make him tap out and finally relinquish that championship. So that was very different circumstances than the one here. I thought that in that match, under those circumstances, that Dragunov had to really earn and fight for that kind of a moment, and I don't really think Jey was in much of a position to do that here. I probably would have preferred Jey just pinning him, hit the splashes and all that stuff, and then get the big dramatic pinfall over him, or make him pass out to the sleeper. But either way, still a big moment for Jey. I take nothing away from him. Jey Uso, a forever tag team guy, one half of a twin tag team, no less. Can't tell him and his brother apart. Just someone to fade in the background, throw him in a multi-team match on the WrestleMania pre-show. No one really cares. No one really distinguishes him. He fought like hell. He broke out in those early pandemic shows with the very early beginnings of the whole Roman Reigns tribal chief gimmick, and he busted through. He became the right-hand man. He became a very complex, interesting character to watch on television, and it blossomed into him becoming main event Jey Uso. And the whole Yeet thing, he's a top merch seller. He's a big draw for the company. He's one of the biggest stars, one of the most over stars in the entire company right now. You got a lot of people who probably don't like him, who don't look at him as a worthy world champion or main event talent, but you can't deny any of those statistics for him. He is a top guy in the company, whether you like it or not. Whether he has the incredible athletic ability or not. That is him. So, gotta learn to live with it, and you gotta learn to live with the idea of him being world champion, because he is world champion. And like I said, the match itself, not great, but it was pretty good. I did enjoy it. It was a good way to open the show and a great moment for Jey. He even got to embrace his brother in the post-match victory. So, good stuff there. The next match is where we begin to see the decline of this show. It was the World Tag Team Championship match between the War Raiders and the New Day. Honestly, I felt bad for these guys because they went out there and they were clearly working hard. They were busting their asses out there. They were trying to get the crowd involved. They were screaming. They were trying to tell a story there. They were clearly working hard. The work was there. It was on point, and it was very easy to tell that these guys were going out there and trying to do the best they could to put on a great performance. But the crowd just never cared. The New Day made their entrance. Their music was playing very loudly. The War Raiders, their music was playing very loudly. And I only preface it by saying that is because with the music playing, as soon as the War Raiders music stopped and as soon as the bell rang, it just felt like the crowd died. It became deathly, scarily silent for the first 5 minutes of the match or so. They cheered for a couple of big spots, and even some of the hot tags that the Raiders were doing, they didn't really react to. Some of the big fancy high spots from Ivar, they popped for a little bit, but honestly not that much. And even the title change. The New Day won, they cheated. There really wasn't much of a reaction to it. There wasn't a whole lot of heat for the New Day. There was even less cheering for the War Raiders. And this is what happens when you put in the bare minimum effort into building a story to put on the WrestleMania card. Like, these guys, the New Day turned heel. They had an incredible angle turning on Big E in December, turning heel, had mega heat for a good couple of weeks. And then Raw moved to Netflix, and it's like all of the momentum the New Day gained from that just completely disappeared. And they've been doing virtually nothing on TV for months. And then they start this thing up with the War Raiders, who also haven't been doing shit. They said that they won the tag team titles back in December. I don't even remember that. I thought they won them in like February or something like that. They won them in December. They've held those titles since December and have done nothing. And I'm not even talking about the Raiders. I'm talking about WWE, Triple H, the creative team, all these writers, all these producers, the people running the show. They have done absolutely nothing with any of these four men. And so because of that, and when you shove a match like this onto the show in front of that crowd, you get what you get. And I'll go ahead and mention it here because there were points later on the show where the crowd was pretty quiet. And I did see a lot of people talking about that. There was a lot of discourse about the Vegas crowd here being very quiet for big chunks of the show. These people pay thousands of dollars to come all the way out here to WrestleMania only to sit on their hands and not react to anything. This is one of those cases where when you look at some of the matches on the show, including this one, what do you expect? They're supposed to just go crazy and go nuts and all that stuff. For what? What is happening in front of their eyes that is warranting that kind of reaction? I didn't see anything. I'm sitting on my ass on my couch at home watching this, and I can't even get into this. So I don't want to pick on the crowd too much. Were they a little quiet at times? Yes, in this match especially, but there was nothing to really get excited about here. But the New Day are tag team champions. I can only hope that there are good things in store for them because they haven't done anything great with them so far. Jade, Cargill, and Naomi, they had their big grudge match up next. This was a really good match. I enjoyed this. Up to this point, I enjoyed it more than the first two matches that started the show. I thought Naomi played her part very well here. She has been killing it in this new heel role. I have enjoyed Naomi's work immensely. And I thought that she was working her ass off in this match. And I thought she was working overtime to not only make herself look good, but also make Jade look good. Now, Jade, she stood on her own, and she hit her big spots and her big power moves, too. She looked great, but a lot of that was thanks to Naomi selling and feeding to her some big spots and making her look good. It takes two to tango. I understand that. But when you have someone as professional as Naomi, who goes out there and takes these big bumps and sells this offense from Jade in a way that makes it look believably vicious, it makes Jade look good. The finish shocked me because Jade managed to pick up the win. She hit this crazy flip over power bomb on Naomi that looked pretty brutal. And then she got her up for the Jaded and got the win. I was expecting a Naomi win here because I figured that would continue the feud. The feud might still continue. We've seen this a few times under the Triple H regime where the babyface does win the first match, but that doesn't necessarily mean the feud is over. Now, one can argue, well, the babyface already won, so what incentive do I have as a viewer to care about the story progressing from here if the face already won? I already saw them win. What else is there to accomplish? That kind of plays into what we could potentially get on night 2 with the Women's World Championship match, because Bianca Belair, I don't expect is going to win that match, and I do think she will be returning to SmackDown full time and will be reinserted into this feud. Now, with Jade winning here, it could just be a Bianca Naomi program that starts up, or Jade can be reintegrated back into it and it can be a 3-way program between the three of them. I'm not sure, but I do think that there is still some juice left in this feud. I don't think it's over, but the match on this show was pretty good. It was one of Jade's better matches I've seen her in so far, and I look forward to seeing more of heel Naomi. Just because she lost here, I'm not over her yet. She also got new theme music on this show. I saw some people giving it a little more praise than I personally would have, but, it just kind of sounded more generic rock music. There was nothing that really distinguished it all that much from a lot of other people's theme musics, but it is what it is. Up next, the United States Championship was on the line. LA Knight defending against Jacob Fatu. This woke up the crowd a lot. The fans love themselves some LA Knight, but they were really getting into Jacob Fatu, especially as the match was going on and he was hitting some crazy spots all throughout the match. The fans were still behind Knight, but the more the match went on, they were really getting behind Fatu. And this was one of the cooler spots of the entire night, as Fatu was hitting a barrage of hip attacks in the corner and was hitting a couple of big moonsaults. He went for one more moonsault, but LA Knight caught him with a BFT in midair, which was pretty cool, but it was only good for a 2 count. But this led to the big finishing sequence where Fatu hit an avalanche Samoan drop and then hit 2 more moonsaults on LA Knight to get the win. And he won the United States Championship, and he was immediately greeted by Haku on the outside. What a terrifying duo Haku and Jacob Fatu are. But this was great. This was a really good match, and the crowd was really into this one. And Fatu picking up not only a win, but a clean win over LA Knight. I thought for sure Solo would get involved to some degree. We only saw Solo at the very beginning of Fatu's entrance. He escorted him out onto the stage, and then he immediately left. And Fatu was riding solo, and he got the win. So, no pun intended with the riding solo part. But Fatu got the clean win over LA Knight. So, big win for Jacob Fatu. I like him. He has been a true breakout star over the last year in that he came out of nowhere. He got plopped right in the middle of that Bloodline storyline and was introduced to the audience, and he has been killing it every single week. The fans have gotten more and more into him and his character. He hits the big moonsaults. He does all the wild shakes and stuff. He looks like a crazy man. His promos, he's great. And this night was the first of many championship victories for Jacob Fatu in his WWE career, I'm sure. And as for LA Knight, not sure where he goes. I honestly don't know what else is left for him on SmackDown to do. If they do a draft, maybe they could send him to Raw. Maybe he could compete for the Intercontinental Championship. Maybe if a heel world champion finds its way onto that show, maybe he could kind of be bumped up a little bit and go after that. Not really sure what else is left for him to do on SmackDown. But as for Fatu, clearly there is still a story there with him and Solo and the dissension between the two of them and the inevitable breaking up of the two of them is just a matter of how much longer do they want to take building up to that. By the time we get to June this year, it will have been 1 full year of Jacob on the main roster. So maybe they want to wait till they get to the year mark and then do the split and start building up a big match for SummerSlam. I'm not sure, but very impressed with Fatu getting the win here and impressed with this match. This was really good stuff. Speaking of pretty good stuff, up next was El Grande Americano in his WrestleMania debut, taking on another WrestleMania debuting star in Fenix. Again, the replacement for Rey Mysterio. Rey replacing Rey here. This was when they were talking about the AAA acquisition on the main card because they had Vikingo, who is a major star in AAA. He was in the front row. He was even confronted by Grande Americano, shoved him, and then Vikingo hit him with an enziguri kick to the side of the head, and that was before the bell, and Americano and Fenix proceeded to have a pretty good match. This is a match that could have easily fit onto a SmackDown or Raw show, didn't really need to be at WrestleMania. Not saying the match with Rey Mysterio would have been any better, but it was fine. The crowd was pretty quiet for it. They were hitting some pretty cool spots. Fucking Chad Gable. Let's drop the BS for a second. Chad fucking Gable. This crazy man hit a 450, 540 something or other backwards splash. This man hit like basically a 450, but he did it backwards. So he landed back in the back of his head first onto Fenix. It looked insane. My words don't even do it justice describing it. This was an insane move here and one of the biggest highlights of the entire night for me personally. This was crazy. But Fenix, he just debuted on SmackDown a couple of weeks ago, and he came out here as a replacement for Rey Mysterio, and he lost. El Grande Americano, he's been using the steel plate and the mask gimmick for a couple of weeks now, so that played a role in this match where he was able to slide it in real quick while the referee was distracted. At one point, Fenix kicked him in the face, and he was selling like he injured his ankle or his foot or something like that. And the commentators very smartly pointed out the fact that, well, we just saw Americano put that steel plate in his mask, so Fenix must have kicked that, and that's why he's selling the injury there. So that was a very smart call on their part. But the match itself was, again, it was fine, and Fenix did end up falling to a diving headbutt, again from the steel plate in his head. So factor in the fact that this match was on last minute. It was against Chad Gable, El Grande Americano, whatever you want to call it, in the middle of this story, and he had a steel plate in his freaking head. So yes, Fenix, a couple of weeks into his run, already lost, but I'm not going to cry for the man. This is a man who was basically praying and begging for a release from his AEW contract. He was granted it. He came to WWE. They ran a couple of vignettes for him for a few weeks. They debuted him. He had a very impactful debut. He has looked good in the couple of weeks that he's been on the show. And, you know, unfortunate, unforeseen circumstances led to him getting a WrestleMania match. But still, nevertheless, he got to compete in a singles match at WrestleMania. Not everyone can do that. So, really cool. It was just cool to see Fenix in a spot like that on this show. The match, nothing overly special. Don't love seeing Fenix lose so quick in his run. But again, it is what it is, man. We had Shawn Michaels come out and announce the brand new fake attendance number of 61,467, and that led into the WWE Women's Championship match between Tiffany Stratton and Charlotte Flair. A match that has had some very rough, ugly build-up to it, with some very awkward promos, some awkward back and forth encounters between these two, all led to this match where it was going to be either really good or really bad. Well, it managed to be both somehow. This, in my opinion, was a very good match, but also a very rough match. They worked well-ish together. They had some good stuff going on. They hit some really cool moves on each other, on one another. They had some pretty cool sequences here and there. But they also had quite a few sequences that were extremely awkward, very rough looking, and kind of uncomfortable, a little cringy. Nothing I can really describe. There were just certain times where they were exchanging moves with each other and it just looked weird. It looked like there was some kind of miscommunication. There was some stalling at certain points where one would kind of halt themselves and then the other was positioning themselves a little bit, and then they would charge at each other, and then once they kind of clash and collide with each other, they're kind of fumbling around a little bit, and then they hit the move. So you had stuff like that in this match, and it made it feel weird. But at the same time, this felt like a war. This felt like a battle. It felt like a fight. At least for Tiffany, it did. This woman got a bruise on her forehead developed at one point in the match. It looked like her tooth was chipped. So she looked like she was in a war in this match, and God, she earned her clean victory here. Yet another clean victory on this show. In the end, after again another rough back and forth between these two, it was Tiffany who hit a prettiest moonsault ever on Charlotte, clean, flush, right in the middle of the ring. 1, 2, 3. She pinned Charlotte Flair clean and retained the WWE Women's Championship. I predicted it. I was hoping against all hope, because a lot of people were saying, oh, this is definitely going to be a Charlotte Flair victory. You can't count out Charlotte Flair. You can't go against the Queen. Justified reactions. But I even said in my predictions, like, I'm going against the grain and I'm really going out on a limb and praying here. But with the way the story has been built up, and because it would be such a bigger moment for Tiffany than it would be for Charlotte, I was hoping that Tiffany would get the win here, and she did. So Charlotte, the person who a lot of people claim never puts people over, which is a lie, but they claim that she never does it, but here, she did it. It's not every day that you see people, I will admit, it's not every day you see people get a clean victory over Charlotte Flair, especially at WrestleMania, although it has happened more than you would think. But still, it doesn't happen that often. But good for Tiffany Stratton. A very strong statement-making win for her. And another thing I did say in my predictions is at least give Tiffany the moment at WrestleMania. Let them go out there, let them have their match, and at least let her have her moment at WrestleMania, which she did. And I'm glad they did. And I was saying I hope they do, because I know Charlotte is going to get that belt eventually. And I still stand by that statement. Whether it's Backlash, whether it's SmackDown, whether it's a future show, Charlotte is going to get that belt at some point in the future. Probably some point soon in the future. But at least on this night at WrestleMania, you cannot take away the fact that Tiffany Stratton beat Charlotte Flair clean. And that is a very strong victory for her as she continues to carve her own path for her own legacy. And now we get to the main event. The triple threat match with CM Punk, with Paul Heyman in his corner, Seth Rollins, and Roman Reigns. CM Punk got the big in living color. In living color. I did I wrote that in my notes here. In living color performance. Living color, not in living color. Great show, by the way. Very good show. Very, very classic show. Could not last today. But regardless, great performance by Living Color. Seeing they even had like a quick little promo video play. Well, the promo video itself that played before the match was great. I forget the name of it, but it was great. The song they used, the song choice was great. Even for the Tiffany Charlotte match, the promo for that one, it was a Lady Gaga song off her new latest Mayhem album. Again, forget the name of the song off the top of my head, but great song choice there, great song choice here, great promos. The promos were some of the best stuff of the entire night too. But this triple threat match, at this point, we opened the show with the big moment with Jey winning. We had Jacob winning. Tiffany won. You had stuff, but again, you had a lot of very mediocre matches, a lot of made-for-TV matches, a very underwhelming crowd, an underwhelming card altogether. So at this point, it's like we got like an hour left of this show. We need a great main event, and luckily we had Seth Rollins, CM Punk, and Roman Reigns. So mission accomplished. This match was fantastic. All three men played their parts in this match perfectly. You did get a little bit of finisher spam. You did have certain big moves and moments where it's like, oh, that's clearly the finish, and it was just a near fall. After seeing what Seth and Punk did in their cage match back in MSG last month, it's not that surprising that you had some stuff like that in this match, but I thought it was very effectively done in this match. One of the cooler spots is at one point Roman was going for a spear on Seth Rollins, but Seth caught him in midair with a pedigree. We've seen them do that spot, the two of them, before, but this one in particular looked really good, and it looked like he really drove Roman's head into the mat, so that's why it really played out pretty good there. But after he hit that move, Rollins kicked Punk out of the ring and then went for a stomp, but it was only good for a 2 count. Then, barreling down here, we get certain points where everybody's hitting big moves on each other, and then Punk is down on the floor outside. Rollins is in the ring with Roman. He's yelling at him. He's telling him that Punk is an outsider. He doesn't belong here. Let's take care of him. Then Rollins goes to the outside, picks up Punk, clears off the announce table. Roman goes out there, and it looks like the two of them are about to deliver a shield bomb, a shield power bomb through the announce table. They're going to join together one time for old time's sake. Roman does the ooh-ah, but then he immediately uppercuts Seth. He just can't bring himself to team up with Seth Rollins in this case. And so he himself power bombs CM Punk through the announce table, the American announce table. And then he picks up Seth and power bombs him through the Spanish announce table. And these were brand new announce tables, by the way. I just bit my tongue, kind of hurt, but I'm a G. We're going to talk through it. He also power bombed Seth Rollins through the Spanish announce table, got him back in the ring, hit him with a spear, only good for a 2 count. That was a crazy near fall there. I definitely thought it was over, but very cool stuff there. At different points later on, we see Punk putting people in the Anaconda Vice, particularly Roman. Roman gets the guillotine on Seth, on Punk, and then we get this really cool final sequence of moves where Punk hits the GTS on Seth. Roman hits a spear on Punk, and then Seth, who never really went down, he bounces off the ropes and he hits a stomp on Roman. All three men are down. And then all eyes point to Paul Heyman out on the floor. He didn't really play much of a role in this match. Punk was kind of trolling Roman early on, going out there and seeking his counsel, so to speak. At one point, Roman was yelling at him in his face and taunting him about beating up Punk. Other than that, Paul really didn't play much of a role in this match until now. Paul Heyman goes over to the timekeeper's area, grabs a steel chair, still on the outside, goes face to face with both Punk and Roman, who are laid out on the inside. Both of them are waking up and looking over at Heyman. Punk is motioning for Heyman to slide him the steel chair. Roman's looking on. And then Heyman gives the chair over to CM Punk. And Roman looks devastated, looks crestfallen. And then Heyman gets in the ring. And as soon as this happened, I'm like, okay. Even before, when he was outside getting the chair, I'm like, okay, something's going to happen here, but I don't know what. Then he slid it to Punk, and I'm like, oh, okay. But then once he got in the ring, I'm like, okay, now this is exactly what's about to happen. And I could pretty much see the entire scenario play out, and it's exactly what happened. So he's with Punk in the ring, and then he kneels down and delivers a low blow to CM Punk. Roman's laughing, Heyman is crying, he looks devastated, he's yelling at Punk, you made me do this, I had to do this. And then he delivers and presents the chair to Roman Reigns, his tribal chief. And then Roman proceeds to just bash Punk over the back with the chair. And then Heyman points over at Seth Rollins on the opposite side of the ring. Tells him, there, remember the Shield, remember all this, deliver your revenge. And Roman's looking at him, and then he pushes Heyman aside, and he gears up to hit Rollins with the chair when Heyman kneels down again and hits a low blow on Roman. And now Roman, and there's a good expression on his face. I'm sure that might be meme worthy. But now Roman is down. Seth, who was kind of pulling himself up by the ropes, facing the entranceway, his pained expression almost immediately turns into just a blank, serious stare. He knew exactly what happened. And then Paul Heyman pulls up right next to him, never looks him in the eye. Rollins never looks him in the eye. Heyman just reaches over, hands Rollins the chair. Rollins turns back around, and he gears it up, and he bashes Roman right in the back with the chair, and then delivers a stomp on Roman and gets the 1, 2, 3. Seth Rollins wins the triple threat WrestleMania main event, and Paul Heyman raises his arm in victory. The two of them leave together. They walk up the ramp together. Seth still holding the chair. They get up on the stage. They shake hands, and they raise each other's arms again in triumph as Roman and Punk are left laying defeated and heartbroken and betrayed in the ring. And then as the show went off the air, they fed into the post-show, and Roman, who just looks completely heartbroken, is slowly walking up the ramp. Punk, not long after him, also looking heartbroken and limping. He looks broken too. Great shit here. This was great. This did not save the show. I still give this a very, very unenthusiastic thumbs in the middle in total rating. But this main event saved it from being a thumbs down. I will say that. This was great. The match itself, the match bell to bell, was fantastic. I thought these three had tremendous chemistry together. It felt like a war. It felt like a big deal. This was easily the hottest the crowd had been all night outside of the Jey Uso stuff at the very beginning. The crowd was fully invested in this match. They loved all three guys, especially Roman. Even Seth, even when they were clearly positioning Seth as being turned heel, and they were still singing his song. So they liked all three guys here. The match itself was great. The physicality, the action, the near falls, all were great. I didn't feel like there was that one near fall where it was like, oh, that was one too many. It might, maybe for some, but for me, this match never really got quite to that point. But that finish with Paul Heyman, again, I kind of leaned into it a little bit. I knew Seth was winning, and I knew there was at least a chance Paul Heyman would play a role in it. I just didn't think it would be a scenario where the two of them would be in cahoots and they would be aligned together. I didn't see that part. I didn't think they would do it. It's not that I didn't see it coming. I definitely considered it a possibility. Many people have been talking about it for many weeks, but it really ramped up in the last week or so. So I definitely saw it as a possibility. I just didn't think they were going to do it, but hell, they pulled the trigger and did it. So, what is the reason for this partnership? Just thinking off the top of my head, in recent weeks, I think back to that episode of Raw a couple weeks ago. Seth Rollins was talking to Paul Heyman, and he mentioned how Roman Reigns, he uses you, he abuses you. When he lost the championship last year, he left you to be miserable and tormented and tortured by Solo Sikoa and his bloodline crew. They put you through a table at not war games. They put you through a table at MSG in front of your family, in front of your kids. CM Punk, he calls himself your best friend, but he's using you. He's using this favor not because it's what a friend would do. He's using you. So maybe that kind of stuff really got in Heyman's head here, and that could play a role into why he aligned himself with Seth Rollins here. Seth Rollins has been spending the last week or so talking about wanting to revolutionize the industry, and this match is about fighting for the soul of the industry. It's the most important, that kind of bullshit. I can buy into that stuff a little bit more when it's coming from a heel who we shouldn't have to take that seriously, and you can kind of chalk that up. So with him being a heel, that kind of stuff really comes off as, well, that's just heel shit, where he's just making it up to sound overly important when he's just a douchebag. My big question here is this the last we see of Seth Rollins and Paul Heyman this weekend? Because in addition to Seth Rollins and Paul Heyman joining up, that little tidbit has been thrown around quite a lot over the past week. Another element is that people believe there's a chance that with that happening on night 2, Cody Rhodes and John Cena, main event for the WWE Championship, we'll see an appearance by The Rock. We might see some people help Cody and combat The Rock, but we might see The Rock and John Cena wins thanks to help from Paul Heyman and Seth Rollins. And one of the big closing shots of WrestleMania is John Cena, The Rock, Paul Heyman, and Seth Rollins all united. People were talking about the big three. Is this going to be the beginning of the big three in WWE? Now, that has sounded ridiculous up to this point because there was not even a big 2. There was barely even a big 1. People looked at what happened at Elimination Chamber and it's like, oh, it's the 2 big mega heels. Is there going to be a third man with them? There was no 2-man. There was barely a 1-man. Rock has not been on TV since Elimination Chamber in Toronto at the beginning of March. John Cena has barely appeared on TV since then either. So it sounded ridiculous in that vein, in that regard, but now we're here at WrestleMania weekend. I could see something happening there. Now, this could all be isolated. This could all just be Seth's own thing with Roman and Punk. This could all just be isolated to this one night. But if they wanted to connect them, if they wanted to really go all out, could they do something like that? Let's just say, let's keep an open mind. But as for Seth himself, this relationship with Paul Heyman, it always felt weird. You know, Seth doesn't really need Paul Heyman, but then again, neither does Roman or Punk. But I'm interested to see how it plays out. I'm not going to get my hopes up too much and get too overly excited because coming out of the big heel turn with John Cena at Elimination Chamber, what happened after that? A lot of nothing. What happened after the New Day turned heel on Big E? A lot of nothing. So the follow-up is not the greatest in this company. So I am going to temper my expectations, keep them a little bit low, and hope that they can, surprise me. But on this night, with this moment, I am intrigued to see where it goes. I am very impressed with how well the angle was executed at the end of this match, and I thought the reaction and I thought everything about it was great. And I am intrigued to see where it goes, but I'm not like, oh, this is going to be great. This is going to lead to this segment and that segment and that segment and this segment. The best I can hope for is that Seth Rollins is one of the big main event guys. He is on the show very regularly every week. Heyman, when he's involved in a program like that, he's around every week. So I have a little bit more faith that this can garner a bit more of a strong follow-up than what they did with John Cena. But we'll see. And as for Jey Uso, the new world champion, the big babyface who got his moments, sorry, man, I'm already plotting your downfall. You're looking at the man who very likely will take that championship away from Jey Uso, probably in his first try. That being Seth Rollins with Paul Heyman at his side. I could very easily see Seth Rollins being one of the first guys to go after Jey Uso and be the one to beat Jey for that championship. Now, could they give Jey a few months? Sure. Could they give him a couple of weeks? That's also a possibility. Backlash is in about 3 weeks from now, so could that be where Seth challenges him and wins the title? Sure. Or they can hold off on that and do a few other big matches with Seth first and then build to that, but we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. But I'm just predicting right now. I don't mean to, but it's the fickle fan in me. I've been talking a lot about fickle fans over the past couple of weeks, if you follow me on Twitter/X. So if you follow me there, you know that. But yeah, I could definitely see this being Jey's downfall, but we'll see. The night itself, the show itself, a little mediocre, but again, started strong, ended even stronger, and had enough good in the middle, but just not enough to really save it. Very underwhelming night one. Last year's night one show was also very underwhelming, but night two blew it out of the water and really stepped up. So I'm hoping for something similar here. Also, talking about the main event finish, I did get heavy WrestleMania 17 ending vibes with Seth and Heyman, and the reaction from Michael Cole on commentary definitely gave off similar Austin McMahon alliance vibes. Nothing on the same level, and obviously this won't kill business the way that the Austin heel turn did, but I did get similar vibes from that, so just wanted to point that out. But that's about it. Going on almost an hour here. I should probably wrap it up. Voice is fading, and gotta get some semblance of sleep because we are doing it all over again tomorrow night. As of this recording, by the time a lot of you guys hear this, WrestleMania probably will be in a couple hours from now. Who knows? WrestleMania Night 2. But that's what's up next. Again, we'll see what happens with John Cena and Cody Rhodes. The women, the triple threat with the women is opening the WrestleMania card tomorrow night. The Intercontinental Championship 4-way. We get to find out who Randy Orton's opponent is going to be. He's going to have a surprise opponent, open challenge. We'll see who answers the call. We'll see what they do with Lyra Valkyria and her surprise tag team partner, and a lot of other stuff. So we'll see what big surprises are in store for us on night 2 of WrestleMania. Till then, if you like what you see, hear, all that good stuff, like, comment, you know the drill. Follow me on Twitter/X at DerekJ Speaks. Until WrestleMania Night 2, take care, guys.